message today is about self-love. As we're continuing our series this month, asking the question, what would love do? Today our question is, what would I do? What would I do if I loved me unconditionally? What would I do? How would I think of myself? How would I treat myself? How would I treat others and experience the world? Ernest Holmes is the author of The Science of Mind that we teach here. And he reminds us that we are individualizations of God. Each of us is an expression of infinite love, not separate from it in any way. And yet we get here and we get convinced pretty early on that we're not okay, that we're not good enough, we're not worthy, we're not lovable, we're not loved, all sorts of things that we begin to believe are true about ourselves. But in fact, we are this infinite love. That's who we be. Today, I want to see if we can debunk any ideas that self-love is selfish. Somewhere along the way, that idea has infiltrated our minds. And I want to see if we can agree that it's our spiritual responsibility to love ourselves because of the love that God is, that we are. And because how we feel about ourselves affects how we experience life. When we think of love, we often, especially this month, right? This is Valentine's month. It's all coming up. Guys, it's next Friday, okay? Everybody got it? Next Friday. Right? Send out a text. It's Friday. So we think about relationships to others at that time, partners, family, friends, whatever it might be. But do we ever pause during our day or at the end of the day and think, how well did I love me today? How well did I treat me today? Anybody? Usually we're beating ourselves up about some silly thing we did, stressing over something that happened, having another sleepless night with worry. How do you speak to yourself in your own mind on a regular basis? In the song this morning, she said she had Jedi level skills in self sabotage and that she holds a black belt when beating herself up. Aren't we our best critics? Because we know the details, right? We know all the details to use against ourselves. How do we treat ourselves every single day? Now, I know most of us do a good job of being very positive and very affirming. But are there ever moments when we're not? Yeah. What do you believe about your own worthiness? Whatever those thoughts and actions are that we take on a regular basis, that's the energy that we carry with us, that we project out into our world and identify as who we are. And it's also what goes to the universe, because the universe is always listening, right? And that's who we're telling it we are. I think of it like a TV or radio broadcast. We're always broadcasting. Ernest Holmes talked about that we're broadcasting stations. Who are you broadcasting yourself to be? Are you Beth on Yellowstone? Or are you more like Oprah on Super Soul Sunday? What are you broadcasting out there on a regular basis? Many of us pray for peace, for calm, for goodness, for compassion, kindness. But do we treat ourselves that way? Do we treat ourselves that way? The way we say we want the world to be? Or do we just lash out in anger about the way the world is, further fueling the way the world is. It's important that we remember that relationship. Creating a world that works for all begins with treating ourselves the way we want the world to treat us. A lot of times we get caught up in, when all that gets fixed, I'll be good. It doesn't work that way. All this has got to get fixed before that begins to shift and change. If we want to create a world of peace, joy, and harmony, it begins right here. Cultivating and broadcasting those qualities from within, because we live life from inside out. So what is this spiritual principle of self-love? The Science of Mind teaches us that love is the highest vibration in the universe. Do you agree? We know that God is love, highest vibration there is. Love is the very essence. And if we're to truly embody and live our divine nature, we need to learn to love ourselves unconditionally, because that's what we came from. That's the substance of which we are made. We just have some ideas in the way that tell us maybe that's not true, but it is true. Self-love is the foundation on which we build a life of peace and joy and fulfillment. And it's the fertile soil from which all relationships are going to blossom in our lives personally and in the lives of everyone that we touch as we move through the world. Last week, Reverend Lee talked about our garden of our minds and pulling the weeds. Self-criticism, self-doubt, feelings of unworthiness. These are weeds. These are weeds that have been planted in our minds. Anybody pulled any weeds this spring yet? They're coming up. Some of them are those little grassy ones that just come right out. And some of them you go, whoa, and you can't hardly pull out. Well, some of these are those that have the long, deep, heavy roots that are buried deeply in our subconscious that we got to work on to get them out. We can't just cut them off, can we? What happens if you just cut off the top of a weed? Comes right back, doesn't it? Even stronger. So we have to work to get the roots. We have to work to get the roots out, eradicate these things. Holmes reminds us also that the universe is impersonal in the way that it responds to us. We live in a system of law, and it is always works the same for everybody. It doesn't matter what our means may be. Rich people don't get treated better by the universal law than folks that don't have as much. What's going on in here determines how that law is going to respond to us. It's how we choose to use it through this power of our individualized minds. Ernest said, life acts like a mirror. Whatever we hold in front of it is all it knows about us. It reflects the forms of the thought that we give it. That's a pretty powerful statement. Because sometimes I think we think that I'm just going to pray for highest and best because the law knows what's best for me. And we've got to be careful with that, because if we're not sure, what's the image we're projecting to that mirror of the law? Uncertainty, right? So that's why it's important that we be clear on those things that we desire, because this mirror is simply going to reflect the form of our thoughts back to us. So when we're radiating self-love and joy, the world mirrors that love back to us. When we get caught in self-doubt and criticism, that gets mirrored back too. We begin attracting experiences that reinforce those feelings. Have you ever said, I knew that bad thing was going to happen? I knew I was going to drop it. I knew that report wasn't going to be received well. I knew they were not going to be nice to me. That is your saying, proving yourself right. I knew it. I knew it. So be very careful with those types of thoughts because we have a tendency to want to make ourselves right. So be very careful with those. Choosing to love ourselves is not an act of vanity, arrogance, or self. Can't remember the word. Sorry. That's a word. That's a bigger word. Selfish. Fish. Ron's going fishing. I should have remembered that. It's not an act of vanity, arrogance, or selfishness. It's necessary in aligning with the highest truth of who we are because we are spirit. We are God beings. In this teaching, we hear that thoughts are things. Have you ever heard that? Ernest said that all the time. Thoughts are things. Because he understood this idea of reflection back to us in the mirror of the law. So thoughts are things. Imagine your thoughts and words as physical things. Think about some of the things you've said just this week. Think about those as things. If we call ourselves a loser, we call ourselves stupid. I can't believe I was so stupid doing that. Oh my gosh. Imagine a sledgehammer, boink, is bopping you, right? Imagine feeling unworthy and unloved as a cold, wet blanket just being draped over you. Thoughts are things. Thoughts are things. And we have the power in our minds to think better thoughts, don't we? We have the power in our minds to think better thoughts. We're sending those messages not only out into the universe, but into our bodies as well, right? Because our bodies are always listening to us as well. So it's important. It's important that we recognize, realize, and understand the power of our thoughts, what we're saying to ourselves, what we're thinking about. Driving down the road, how many times are we not aware of where we are? And we suddenly realize, oh, I'm almost there. What have you been thinking about during those times? Do you know what you're thinking about? Or is your subconscious truly just thinking up stuff? And is it positive or negative? Now, intellectually, I know we know this. I know we know this. And consciously, we try to practice living positive and affirming lives. I do. But I sometimes catch myself in that little negative spiral. I sometimes catch myself saying things that I go, who said that? So it can still happen to all of us because our minds are amazing machines, are they not? And what they can do. The committee, the hamster on the wheel, self-doubt can sometimes just take over. So how can we reform our minds? One of the tools that we teach here is mindfulness. Found a quote by a gentleman named James Baraz. He says, mindfulness is simply being aware of what is happening right now without wishing it were different. Enjoying the pleasant without holding on to it when it changes, which it will. Being in the unpleasant without fearing it will always be this way, which it won't. Isn't that a wonderful definition? Being present without attachment to the good or the bad and recognizing it always changes. In order to change our thinking, we have to be aware of what we are thinking that we want to change. Do you know anyone that's not aware of their negative thoughts? Yeah, we run into them all the time, don't we? Mindfulness helps us to slow down enough to notice those thoughts that we're having and to begin to change them through a process of denials is what I typically use because I have to stop myself in my tracks. And a denial usually does that. Saying I'm so stupid becomes I'm not stupid, I'm intelligent. I'm a child of the divine, I'm a child of intelligence and wisdom. I'm absolutely not stupid. That's crazy. I acknowledge I made a mistake. And then I look for and find gratitude in that. What did I learn? What did I overcome? What will I do next time? Think about how you would treat, yes, a new word. Think about how you would treat a 5-year-old who was learning math and added 1 plus 1 and said it's 3. Would you tell them they're stupid? Would you simply explain, that's not it. Let me show you. Let me mentor you. Let me dry your tears because you made a mistake. Would you treat them with kindness and tenderness? Yeah. When did we lose that? When did we give that up on ourselves? It's like she said in the song, I give love easily to everybody else, but not me. When did we let go of that? Whatever the inner critic says, whether you're not worthy of that raise, that hot girlfriend, or a new home, you say, that's not true. I'm a creation of that which has made everything. I am worthy of any desire that has been placed in my heart by the Spirit. I am good at my job, and I deserve to be well compensated for my time and talent. I have all I need to attract my perfect right woman, man, new home, whatever the desire is. I am more than enough to receive it. This week, as I was thinking about this message, I realized there might be a connection between self-love and the law of attraction. Ernest says every person is surrounded by a thought atmosphere. This mental atmosphere is the direct result of our conscious and unconscious thoughts, which become the direct reason for and cause of what comes into our lives. We don't usually talk about the law of attraction when we're teaching self-love. Let's think about that. When we love ourselves, we're broadcasting like that iHeart radio station, the sappy love songs that plays all the time. We're broadcasting love, right? We're just a little broadcast station of love and joy. You know people like that, don't you? Yeah. We automatically begin to attract people and activities and opportunities who like to listen to that station and who are tuned into in alignment with it, right? As we raise our vibration, because love is the highest vibration there is, right? As we raise our vibration in love, doesn't it make sense that our life is going to begin to mirror our highest good? That we'll attract that into us? The universe responds to us and reflects our inner state of being, that tendency of thinking. So loving ourselves is foundational to successfully using the law of attraction. Starts there. Starts there. Now, a really cool side effect of when we begin to intentionally live from a place of self-love is that we become that ripple on the pond. And it begins to affect everybody in our lives, everybody we come in contact with. And our beacon of light starts to shine brightly, and they begin to pick up on it. And then they begin to share it and see it and shine it, and they become that ripple. And the next thing you know, everybody's doing it. I saw a post on Facebook this week that showed a picture of women, it was just a picture of women in 1963, in 1969. And the statement was you had to be there to understand this. Because in 63 were the beehives and all that stuff, remember? Girls still dressed nicely. And then in 69, it was the long hair, the headbands, the hippie look, and all that stuff. You know, that was what, 6 years? The world changed so dramatically. Imagine if in 6 years, everybody became a ripple on this pond of love and everything changed. Is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. We start a chain reaction of love. Not a pipe dream, but a real possibility that begins with each one of us healing the thoughts we tell ourselves, the lies we tell ourselves that we're not okay, that we're not lovable or worthy. We have to choose to mute that inner critic. We have to disband that committee inside of our heads and love ourselves unconditionally so that we can align with and attract our good to us. And this is how our vision of a world that works for everyone works. It starts inside us and moves out from there. If you would like to study more about these principles, I invite you to sign up for our Mindful Monday newsletter. It comes out on Monday mornings, and it's a recap of the talk and the spiritual practices that we're going to go over here this morning. I have 3 for us today. 3 practices for cultivating self-love. Number 1 is affirm it. Affirm it. Speak words of love and kindness to yourself each day. I invite you to use the Louise Hay mirror work. Anybody familiar with that? Louise Hay was one of our great teachers and ministers, and she recommends that we stand in front of a mirror and repeat an affirmation every day for 21 days. I'm going to invite you to at least do it these 7 days from today through next Saturday. And I want you to stand in front of the mirror and just simply say, I love you to yourself until it gets comfortable. Use different tonalities, different ways of saying it, but get yourself comfortable with standing in front of the mirror, looking at yourself and saying, I love you. And continue to do that again until it feels comfortable. I've done this exercise, and there is a point where it becomes comfortable. It's not in the beginning. In most cases, it is not in the beginning, but it will get there. And it's transformative. So I invite you to step into that. You can also do this for any other condition you're dealing with, fear. What else do we want to overcome? Fear, anger, any of those sorts of things. You can do that. I will put a link to Louise's mirror work information in the Mindful Monday newsletter for you too. Number 2 is self-compassion. Treat yourself with the same grace and forgiveness you would offer a child or close friend. Remember that 5-year-old. Treat yourself that way. When you make a mistake, rather than beating yourself up, gently remind yourself you're doing your best. I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best, and I learned from this to do better. Now, if you come up with resistance at that phrase, I'm doing my best, in a particular situation, start there. Start there. If there's some place that you don't believe you did your best, dig into that. Why not? And begin doing your best so that you can begin living your best life. Number 3 is self-care. Care for your body, mind, and soul as the sacred temple that it is. This is it. They haven't found a body transplant yet that we can put our consciousness in a new body. So we got to take care of this one. So rest when you're tired, nourish your body with healthy food, and take time for activities that bring you joy. Joy is so important. It's so important for us to do things that bring us joy, that make us happy, that make us smile, that make us feel good. Take time for that. Nourish your soul with daily spiritual practices such as meditation, prayer, sacred reading, and mindfulness. Self-care is a tangible way that we demonstrate love for ourselves. So developing greater self-love is a spiritual practice. It's a daily devotion to recognizing and honoring our oneness. Our oneness. God is all there is. God is love. God created all that is. God created me. I therefore am that love. I am one in that sacred oneness. And that's the key to creating lives filled with more joy, peace, and fulfillment. If you don't remember anything else about this talk today, I invite you to please remember you are worthy, you are whole, you are infinitely and unconditionally loved. So it is. And it is your turn. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Complaints? You want to say something?
I might be one of those persons that can love you and everyone else. And I do that very well. And I do love myself, but I don't show it.
Ah.
But I would do anything for anyone in this room or anyone I ever see. But I wouldn't do that for myself.
Really? Interesting. Have you had any experience of discovering what that's about for you? Digging a little deeper inside and asking?
Probably not. I accept it and I move in that direction.
Yeah. I bet this mirror work exercise will be good. Yeah. Look forward to hearing about it next week. Anybody else? Kim?
I just started a practice within the last week that I found to be transforming, which is before I go to bed, the last thing I do is I answer the question, what 3 things did I do well today?
Nice.
And that's been just a practice of self-care that has been transformational because I wake up in a much better frame of mind than going to bed thinking about what I did wrong, which is our tendency, just conditioned. So it's been helpful.
Are you sleeping better?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. That's awesome. That's a great practice. Say the question again.
What 3 things did I do well today?
What 3 things did I do well today? I like that. Maybe that becomes our gratitude practice next week. What 3 things did I do well this week? How about that? Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Kim. Anybody else, Bob?
A couple things. I heard it said somebody said it. If somebody treated me the way I treat myself, I'd had to punch them out.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that way inside sometimes. It's getting better, especially since I joined the CSL community. But the one thing when you first started speaking today, I wondered about if you believe if you don't have self-love, can you really truly love another person? You first have to have the self-love or not.
That is, yeah, that's a great question, because a lot of times we teach that we first have to love ourselves before we can love anybody else, or before anyone can love us. And I think it's more, we have to love ourselves before anyone else can love us, because we're exuding that energy of not love. So that gets real thick in analyzing what type of love we're talking about. You know, is it a superficial? Is it a more deep love? I think we can love others. Yes. I think we can love others more. I think we can love others more than we are because we've got something in ourselves that is blocking us fully loving ourselves and fully loving the other. There's a barrier. It's not that full merging in oneness. And I think that's the healing work that we do inside that allows us to do that, to really become merged in oneness. Mm-hmm. Daniel, a self-love expert.
So one of the things I learned in practice when we're doing the real love work
Mm-hmm.
was that we can have others love us until we can learn how to love ourselves. And so what that requires is for us to be open to receive that. I think that's the distinction. We have to be open to receive that. And then eventually we will learn how to love ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you don't have love, you have to get it from outside sources. I think
Very true.
that's the presence.
Very true. Thank you for that reminder. You have to get it from outside sources if our bucket is empty inside. Yeah. Jane.
How can you, we're, I hope to work on this, but how can you dislike people politically so much? You think they're good people, and yet politically, I think we're going the wrong way. but it is an opinion, I guess. How do we know we're right and they're wrong?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a very good question. In this teaching and many others, we teach that we separate the act from the actor. And I know. And we can look at actions and disapprove or disagree with those, but still do it in a loving way and still be loving towards that person, recognizing their divinity and the oneness that we all live in. And that's a challenge for us because we see things as separate from us. We see things and people as separate from us. So it can prove challenging. What time is it? 2 minutes till. I had this story in my talk and I took it out, but it speaks to what you're talking about. Jim. This week, Friday night, I was scrolling through Facebook and I came across a post from a minister friend that I went to school with, know her well. And she posted that she was very happy about a recent executive order. And there was a lot of comments. I started scrolling through the comments, and many of them were supportive of her and her decision. Some were supportive of her, but not her decision. But the ones that I was most fascinated by were ministers that I went to school with, that went to school with her. We all know each other well and know our stories. And the way they attacked her person rather than the issue. And it was really saddening to me as an example of what we're talking about with that separation of the act from the actor. She posted her opinion. She posted something that she felt good about, she agreed with. And yet she got publicly humiliated, torn down. And I was very saddened by that. And that's a lot of what prompted some of this message today, is that we have got to start within ourselves to be that love that can ripple out and not participate in that level of tearing stuff down when we disagree with it. Not stuff, people. We can't tear people down when we disagree with them because we're all one. We have to remember that. We can disagree with the action, but we have to remember to find the love in our hearts, that we're all one. If you've got children and they've ever done anything that you didn't agree with, you usually don't stop loving them, do you? Let's pray. As we go within, we recognize that there is one life, one mind, one heart, one power, one presence. That power, that presence, that life is God. That life is love. That life is the one substance and source of everything that exists, has ever existed and ever will exist. Everything that is in this very moment. Every person, every place, everything. And it is all good, for God is good. And I know that this allness, that this infinite intelligence, this wisdom, this divine right order and action is that which runs this universe, has set it up, has created it. It keeps the planets in alignment, the stars in the sky. And I know that as that perfection has always been, it continues and will continue. And I know that each of us is a manifestation of that, and that each of us is whole, perfect, and complete in that manifestation, that we are that love. We are created of it. We live it. We are it. We were born of it. We are one in it, one in each other, all connected to all beings on this planet, past, present, and future. And so from this place of absolute unity, absolute oneness, absolute wholeness and perfection, I speak my word for and about each one of us. Knowing in this moment that we just let it go. We let go of anything that we have said yes to that no longer serves us. Anything that tells us we are less than, unworthy. We fire the inner critic. We silence the committee. We disassemble the hamster wheel. And simply allow our minds to be open and clear and filled with love. Just breathing into that. What would it be to be love? I know that there is divine right order and action in the universe, on our planet, in our government, in our cities, and in our lives. I bless all who take leadership roles in all areas of life, whether it's our church leadership here at Scottsdale CSL, whether it's our federal government, whether it's any government in the world. We all know that we know that all are divinely inspired, guided to right and perfect action, and that all will unfold exactly as it needs to, and that we in this moment are whole, perfect, and complete. I know for anyone that has anything on their heart this day, that as they lift it into this prayer, that we know that it is healed, it is revealed, it is clarified, there is abundance and prosperity, there is joy and love and loving relationships. Whatever that ask is for, whatever that desire in their heart is, placed there by Spirit, it is fully orbed with all necessary for its full and complete manifestation, and we accept that in this moment. It is with a grateful heart, filled with joy and thanksgiving, that I release this prayer into the action and activity of law, knowing that it is done. And we affirm that truth together by saying, and so it is.